Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here in front of you. A very quick, as Andrew did such a great introduction. I'm motivated by lots of things, but one of the things that I'm quite motivated by is recognition. So I collect job titles. And to my wife's ongoing horror, many of these come with no money. Yeah, chair, GAMFed, no money. Entrepreneur in residence. I think that was no money for 6 years, but there's now a little. Yeah. But basically, I run a gamification consultancy. I've been the entrepreneur in residence at the University of Brighton for 9 years, where I teach entrepreneurship and also gamification. So I love how it mixes with business. And I've ended up chairing the only international body in gamification, which is all around spreading best practices. So one of the reasons I like to come and speak to you is to share what really works. And if I have any spare time, I do some other stuff. Now, what I'd really like to do is actually find out a bit about you before I begin. So can I have the lights up for a second? Thanks. There are people in the room. Excellent. It's packed. Could I ask you to stand up if you've ever played a computer game, a video game, a board game, or a sport? Only once have I had someone who didn't stand up, and they really had never played a game. Could you stay standing if you played a game this year? Good. This month? Let's see, a lot of game players. How about played a game this week? Stay standing. Still too many. If you played a game today, stay standing. And normally there's some who've commuted. And excellent. Can I ask what you played?
Today it was Candy Crush, but usually it's MMOs.
That's cool. Ditto, though. I played Candy Crush today.
Asphalt Extreme.
Asphalt Extreme. Excellent. Homework for me to play the game I've never heard of. Candy Crush as well, still popular. Chess. First thing in the morning? I like that. Get the brain going. Over here?
It's like
A cooking game on your phone. You're learning good skills? You can sit down once I've interrogated you. Angry Birds. Excellent. 2 for 2. Thank you. I haven't got time to task everyone, but thanks. And pretty much mostly mobile games as well. That's definitely where we're interacting these days, isn't it? Okay, I think I've got a feel for you. You like playing games. I know what I'm doing. And you can lower the lights again. Quick definition. Gamification has only been around since 2010, really. So the academics are still arguing about the exact definition, but this is the most commonly accepted one. So it's the use of game mechanics in non-game situations. Okay? I quite like thinking of it as a framework for practically applying lots of knowledge that's already out there, lots of theories that are already out there, motivational psychology, behavioral economics. And what it gives us is a chance to just apply those really easily in a practical way. He mentioned that I'm going to talk a little bit about the theory, and I'm going to start with some neuroscience to wake you up. There's quite a few neurotransmitters out there. I'm going to talk about 3 key ones that we talk about in gamification, the first of which is dopamine. And one of the reasons we work with dopamine is it's one of the best neurotransmitters. It's the only one that rewards us before we do something. So if we can actually trigger dopamine, it gives us the most chance to get someone to do an action for us, to change their behavior. And how do we trigger dopamine? Well, there's a few ways. One is to offer new and novel experiences. Go and see a new film, read this new interesting piece of content, go and hear a speaker that you've never heard before. Yeah. New and novel content. The other is actually dopamine is released when we set goals for ourselves. So when we envision a goal, something we want to achieve, we get a little bit of dopamine release. So one of the things we end up doing in gamification is using things like badges and levels and stuff to reflect back to people on their progress towards the goal. Yeah, so we're triggering a bit more dopamine. In a minute, I'll get you to do another exercise that maybe you've never done before. So hopefully I've triggered a little bit of dopamine, maybe a bit of fear. It's worked instantly, thank you. Okay. And the second one is oxytocin. Oxytocin is very social. It's all about increasing our feelings in social situations. It's what enables our bonds between parent and children, between friends, between teams of people working together. And it's what we're going to do an exercise on now. So I'm going to ask for the lights up again. And what I'm going to ask you to do is actually introduce yourself to at least 2 other people in the room. But you've got to shake hands for at least 6 seconds, because that's how long it takes before the oxytocin starts flowing. Yeah? And I have done this in the UK before, and it's quite uncomfortable, and it's really difficult to introduce yourself and count to 6, apparently at the same time. So let's do that. It's easier if you stand up as well. So if you can introduce yourself to 2 other people. Have you done at least 2? Shake hands with at least 2 people. Yeah, done 2. Okay. Sometimes this exercise works a little too well. You could sit down again, that'd be great. That's great, I could hear that working. Isn't that cool? You're now biochemically primed to work with each other, so that's good, isn't it? Yeah? So that's oxytocin in action. What's great is the latest research as well shows us that we actually get oxytocin release even with online social media interactions. So when someone likes our Facebook status or retweets us, we get a little buzz of oxytocin, even though we haven't evolved to do that. So we can really use this in all sorts of different ways in what we're doing. I should have warned you, by the way, it accentuates all feelings. So if you were shaking hands with someone who was already angry or grumpy, you just made it worse. But you looked pretty happy, so I thought I'd go for that. It's one of the reasons why, actually, if someone is angry, you shouldn't touch them. It's not you, you're just going to automatically make their feelings worse because of oxytocin. So that's the hardest bit to do. Oxytocin is also really good in storytelling. Oxytocin is released in our brains when we're listening to a story. I mean, as it's released, it makes us experience the story as if we're in it, which is why stories are so engaging, why the best video games have big storylines, why we really like films and books. We get into it, we start listening to it. So it's great for grabbing attention and engaging with people. It's also good as a learning tool as well. If you want someone to learn from something, tell them a story about it, and then they'll experience it, and they're more likely to learn from it. That's oxytocin. The third one, serotonin. This one's quite simple, actually. If you have enough of it, you're happy. If you don't have enough, you're depressed. And we can trigger this quite simply, actually. One of the easiest ways to do it is to praise and thank people. So thank you very much for doing my exercise a minute ago. You did really well at it. Hey, hopefully there's a little bit of serotonin release in the room. Yeah. Serotonin can also be released when you achieve difficult things. So if you achieve something very challenging, you will get serotonin release. So when you've finished that degree or got that big client or whatever it is that's a challenge, you get some serotonin release. What do we do in gamification is we'll probably give you something to represent that achievement. A certificate, a badge, perhaps. But it has to represent something that was really earned, something that was quite difficult to achieve for it to have meaning. But then, every time you look at that badge or that certificate or that trophy, again, you'll get serotonin release. So the happiest people are generally the ones with all their trophies on display. Anyone got a trophy cabinet? No one's going to admit to it. Cool. That's the neuroscience of it. It's not too complicated, and it really matches well with the psychology. Most people have seen Maslow's hierarchy of needs. In fact, you've probably seen the version with Wi-Fi at the bottom.
And batteries.
And batteries, yeah, battery life. Yeah. Now, I'm not going to cover much about this, except to say that gamification work is all done in the top, the self-actualization, the esteem section. And it'll only work if we have the basics in place. Yeah, so gamification isn't going to work for someone who's not feeling very well, who isn't being paid enough, etc. They've got to have the basics in place. But the main theory that works with gamification is Decky and Ryan's self-determination theory, which they've been working on for years and years. The main outcomes of this are, if you have these 3 things in place, you will have a highly motivated person. So, quickly and easily, relatedness, well, that's our oxytocin in action. We want to do things with other people. Yeah? In games, we're going to put you in a guild or in a team, something like that, to give you more opportunity of doing things with other people. We want autonomy or choice. There is all the research around intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. In essence, if we decide to do something, we're more motivated to do it. If we're told to do something, we're less motivated. So from an advocate point of view, there's some really interesting things there about forcing content in front of people or not, and letting people choose what they're going to share. And competence, I quite like this one. This one's more fear-based. It's like, if I think I've got enough skill at something, I'll give it a go. If I might be able to achieve what I've set out to do, then I'll try. If I don't think I've got any skill, I'm not even going to try. So put those three together and you've got motivation. But then Dan Pink came along. Who's read Dan Pink's Drive? Excellent. It's a thoroughly brilliant book. He looked at what motivates people in work, and he's got three slightly different ones. He's still got autonomy, give people choice about what they do, but he added a big new one, purpose. And this is where people are more motivated for some ultimate goal. So maybe it's a big world-saving goal, like eradicate disease, eradicate poverty, save the world, get Donald Trump out of power. Some big purpose. Or it could be a personal goal. I want to quit smoking. I want to lose weight. I want to learn to run a whole marathon, whatever it might be. Everything you do towards that goal is more motivating because of the end goal, even if actually what you're doing isn't that much fun, because the ultimate goal is more motivating. And then instead of competence, he looked at mastery, because what he really noticed was that people are more interested, people enjoy learning and getting better at stuff. And this more closely parallels what we see in games. People aren't scared to try a game, not so much. What they want to do is get better and better at it. You know, with our Candy Crushers, what level are we up to on Candy Crush? No idea? 100, 200, 1,000?
I only play it when I'm commuting, so I'm not that committed, but I definitely know that I'm at the level cap in World of Warcraft.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
So, similar, you're mastering up, yeah? So he says, put these three things together, and you've got highly motivated members of staff. Actually, now we get to our first gamification guru, Andrzej Marzuski, and he put all of these together in something that matches up with what we see in games. There's three layers of motivation. So in essence, we've got the core layer, which is what we saw in Maslow's hierarchy of needs at the bottom. Then we've got the emotional layer, and here he's got the best bits: relatedness, autonomy, mastery, and purpose. And you want to put, if you can trigger all four of those, you've got someone super motivated. And if you take one thing away from my talk, it will be, hopefully, that 90% of our gamification work is done in this emotional layer. That's actually where we spend the effort. We want to work out what emotions we want to trigger in people. How do we want to change their behaviors? And then the trivial layer, which is what a lot of people see gamification as, which is why I talk about this, is the badges, the points, and so on. And what we're doing there is hopefully using those to trigger and relate back to other things. So we're going to give you badges and send you up levels to show you're progressing towards mastery. We're going to give you an epic purpose. Save the world, defeat 1 billion aliens, whatever it might be. We're going to give you choices in how you go about doing what you do. We'll give you stuff to explore, but we'll also let you choose how you achieve what you want to do. And of course, we're going to put you into teams to do stuff together. The biggest games are by far the ones with the longest running engagement are the ones where people are doing stuff together. There are hundreds of game mechanics. I'm going to show you a great little video, which I think is a superb example of challenge. Let's show that.
네, 어서 오십시오. 저희가 이번에 시장으로 나온 제품이고요.
You're described as love that's like a fool. You broke my heart. So many parts I'll never
근데 무서운데?
I don't wanna It's way too hard to crawl out of. Yeah, I don't wanna fall in love again. Fall in love again. Yeah, I don't wanna fall in love again.
What I love is the fact that even the ones who miss are thoroughly enjoying themselves. They've taken the game has made them take a leap of faith. Can you just imagine what stories those customers are telling and spreading after that? I don't know if we could do this in the UK. I'm not sure if health and safety would allow us to do that to customers coming to the store, but if we could get close, it would be great. That's the fastest I think I've ever gone through the theory of gamification with anyone. So now what I want to do is a bit more practical about how do we go about using it to create our advocates. I'm mostly going to talk about employee advocacy just because I don't really have time to do customer and employee advocacy, but all the theory works for everyone. It's all about what motivates people. Okay, so this is the stat I saw that I thought was really interesting, and it really resonated with me. 74% of employees feel that they're missing out on company information and news. And actually, it resonated with me because I'm often going into companies, and before I go in, even just for the initial chat, I always do a quick bit of research, and they've nearly always done a gamification campaign of some sort. It might be in HR, in marketing, somewhere, and there's stuff about it. And then no one I meet at that brand, or that corporate, has any idea that they've done something like that. I even went to one where they'd won awards for it, and the person recognized the person in the picture accepting the award still didn't have a clue that they'd done something cool. And if they can't see, and they're not seeing even fun content. I mean, the content around gamification is always interesting, it's very engaging, the stories are really engaging. If you can't see that internally, there's something missing. So I think that's what got me interested in this part of it. So how do we relate our RAMP, our relatedness, autonomy, mastery, and purpose, to brand advocacy? Well, the first thing for me is relatedness. For me, it's one of the most powerful parts of all of this. And in fact, in terms of the analysis of game mechanics, because to be honest, we've got stats from the last 4 decades of video games where we track every little interaction that's going on, so we know what engages. The most popular game mechanics, the ones that are most effective in terms of engagement for the longest period of time, are where people are playing together, cooperatively with their friends in the same geographical location, or competing with their friends in the same geographical location, or cooperating or collaborating with their friends remotely, but still with their friends, or even then competing with them. So it's all about the people. It doesn't really matter about anything else. If you can trigger that, you've got 80% of people interested in doing something. So what can we do? Encourage more team-based stuff, team competitions. A lot of what I've seen in employee advocacy is all about the individual, how effective their brand reach is, things like that. How many followers have you got? What about team stats? What about how we work together to create the content and share that and compete or collaborate? I don't think it's that difficult to build, and I think people will thoroughly enjoy it. So think about ways to relate content to each other. Autonomy. Well, this is really about trust and choosing, letting people choose what to share and how to share. I thought the GE story earlier was really good on this one. Just letting people get on with it and come up with their own stuff. Giving them a bit of training, but saying, yep, you're free to go. If GE can do it, anyone can. Yeah, it's a big company. And I think it's probably the hardest thing for anyone running a company or managing people is to trust their employees not to do something outrageous. I think a really good example of it working was the Southern Rail apprentice on Twitter. Yeah? He got an authentic story across, and he was just allowed to do it. Yeah, if that had gone through committee, it would not have happened. Okay, so autonomy. Mastery. Well, actually, this one is what we've heard a fair bit about today, and I agree. But the key one for me is encouraging your employees to get better at what they do. This is the mastery bit. And from an advocacy point of view, well, be more involved in your industry, get better at what you do, tell people about that, become a thought leader. Encouraging that and fostering that, I think, is really important. And I think this is also where recruiting people to be brand ambassadors kicks in as well, and rewarding those people and recognizing. Recognition is a good one. Recognizing them for what they've achieved and bringing them on board. And the one that I think is quite often missing and gets lost is purpose. And I think there's two types. We really want, because you do have to help create some content, but what you want to do with this one is actually feed out to people reminders of why they're doing what they do. Yeah? The big goal, the overall goal for the company. Yeah? This time, there's a company based near me called ETI. They sell electronic temperature instruments, which are basically thermometers that you stick in food when it's cooking to make sure you're not going to kill someone off with food poisoning. Okay? It's just a widget, and they export it all over the world. But actually, their purpose is to save lives and stop people feeling ill. And so what you can do is just reflect that out. And so we started asking them to show things like the trends and stats in the countries they sell these to reinforce the fact that they're having an impact, hopefully, because they sell a lot of them. Yeah? And then even, I think, harder is to use this content to reflect back and remind people about their own personal goals. Yeah? This will link nicely with the mastery, actually, but you need to remind people that there's something in it for them. What's the emotion you're trying to trigger with those people? I thought I'd look at a few examples for today of advocacy apps. I couldn't help noticing how many leaderboards there were throughout. And actually, of all the gamification work we do, leaderboards is one of the things I tend to avoid, but I do think it works quite well in the advocacy space, because it's a type of benchmarking that shows how effective you're being at it. And that's the bit that's really working here. So these are different examples, but I quite like this one, the potential reach. That's a nice one. But retweets and reshares, this is much more about how effective you're being. We don't really know what they're judging the rankings on the other ones, but it works. But could we do better? I had to look at Qubist. What I really liked about one of their projects they worked on is they've really thought about the types of badges and the names of those badges that people are earning. And what I really like is these are named like they want to encourage me to get better on my journey to becoming a brand advocate, to being really good at what I do. Yeah, advocate of the day, superior sharer, influencer, guru. These are the terms that make you want to get better at it. You know? For my sins, I'm on a leaderboard in the gamification world, because we do have this sort of thing. It's called the Gamification Gurus Power 100. So people fight it out for influence online. But it works. I think that's a really good example. This is quite an interesting story. PwC, they had an internal advocacy program that was really struggling with take-up. I think it was very official, the usual sort of put content in front of people. Externally, a few of them had set up what they call a Rise Global board, which just, in this case, judges how effective they are on social media, how influential they are. Yeah, it judges their clout score, which I heard mentioned earlier, as a who uses that still? Except behind the scenes and stuff like this. And also, actually, this one is mostly Twitter, but it can link into YouTube, Facebook, all the other things, and give you scores on that. What's really interesting is this external tool that people internally started using got major traction, and people really enjoyed using it. And I think it was partly because they were able to do and create their own content. They weren't being straitjacketed. And now it's been adopted as the internal advocacy system of choice, because they've just, adopt success. And to give you some stats from it, there's only 963 users of it at the latest point. Between them, they got 900,000 followers, and they managed to get quite a lot of mentions per week and a lot of retweets per week. And they just have a leaderboard that comes out once a week. Yeah? All the time up to that, you're doing your own thing. You don't know how much effect it's having. So you're just into it for the content and coming up with interesting stuff. I think it's a good example of using that sort of benchmarking of how good you are to motivate. I want to give you a question that I want you to take away today and really think about, because I think it's the hardest thing in this country, which is how much trust are you willing to give your employees? And actually, I'm on target. So I want to give you 2 minutes to discuss that between you. If I could have the lights back up again. Have a quick discussion with the people around you around how much trust are you willing to give your employees or your customers for that matter? Yeah? How much will you let them associate with your brand with what they're putting on social media? Okay. Thanks for that. Now I know what you're going to be talking about over lunch, or hopefully I've given you a lunch topic as well. I wanted to quickly dive into, because I was asked to, and I think it's important, the type of rewards you should use within your advocacy programs. And it boils down to two simple things for me, really. One is try not to use monetary rewards. For me, all the research says that they are motivating for a while, but then they destroy the intrinsic motivation. So if you've got someone who's enjoying putting content out, then you reward them. You're either going to have to keep rewarding them with money every time, or they will want to stop doing it and they're no longer being paid. And to be honest, is that affordable as well over the long term? And what I do see a lot is people trying to game that sort of system and come up with rubbish content just to win the prizes. And I see that, funnily enough, quite a lot at conferences where someone's done a game about how to get people tweeting a lot. We're all right today. Everyone's so into this. We're trending on Twitter, I'm told. So that's good. But no prizes needed. But when people do start doing it, they start putting up rubbish content, like you get extra points for a picture, and they're just random pictures of the conference, things like that. Yeah. If you do want to use them, try and use ones that are related to the type of business you're in. Yeah? So a reward for a conference like this might be something around the lines of access to an advocacy program for a while, yeah? Or advice and training around it, or something like that. And we've heard quite a lot about the other types of rewards, I think. For me, key ones, public praise and recognizing people for being good at what they're doing, and appointing the top ones as your ambassadors to go on and do the work. I really like how the football one was recruiting so many ambassadors from around the world, really. They might not call them ambassadors, content creators, but that's definitely what they were getting. The last thing I'm going to do, and I'm going to ask for the lights up for one last time, is there's a game designer called Jane McGonigal, and she created a game called Super Better. And it's been around long enough now that they've researched it, and what they've proved, and this is my gift to you today, what they've proved is if you play this game, which is free, for 30 days in a row, you will be less anxious, less depressed, and more likely to achieve your life goals. Does that sound cool? That's pretty cool, yeah, for this game. Now, I want to show you that it's not that difficult a game to play. So we're going to do 3 of the tasks. So pretty much you'll have the first 3 days sorted. Okay, so the first one, I've chosen a few at random from the app, but it's the sticky chair. And what I need you all to do is stand up and move 1 step away from where you're currently sitting. Not too difficult. Almost everyone managed that. Excellent. You've done the first one. That's not hard. A second one, a power up. Now you can either give yourself a hug or a pat on the back. You've been a great audience so far this morning and really engaging in the conference. Well done. You're super. And the next one, human tag. There's a few different ways to do this in the app, but my favorite one is if you could pick someone else in the room, don't all pick me, and smile at them. Pick someone in the room, smile at them. Fantastic. There you go. You've got the first 3 days sorted. You can finish a month of that, can't you? Thank you very much.